Welcome to our very first episode of Matside Nation. We are here to talk about wrestling from a parent's point of view and a wrestler's point of view. My name is Ricardo. I will be your host, and I am a parent that spent many hours Matside.
And my name is Ricardo. I'm your co host. I was a former wrestler, and I'm here to give you the perspective on the athlete side.
Follow us as we talk about different subjects on wrestling, things that's happened in the past from our experience, and things that are just happening now as time goes by and as wrestling continues to grow.
This is Matside Nation, and this is where the parent's perspective meets the athlete's perspective.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about why we want to start this podcast. I've always been very involved with my kids' wrestling. I've grown a lot with wrestling as a parent on the mat side, and something I want to continue with my kids. Still very involved with wrestling. As my kids stop competing, it makes it a little bit harder to be mat side in that side. However, I still want to be involved, and I think there's a great thing to do with my son. We could talk about wrestling, and we could continue to stay involved in something that we've learned to love. Another reason for me that I want to start this podcast is because I see a lot of bad feedback from parents, especially dads. I don't think wrestlers understand the type of feelings that we have towards wrestling. Sometimes, we weren't really wrestlers, and it's hard for us to be there for our kids, push our kids. At the same time, it kind of makes us kind of hypocrites. But nobody's going to understand the love and how we want our kids to do better. So hopefully this makes it understand a little bit. Maybe I understand a little bit more from my son. Maybe he can make me understand a little bit more, and maybe I can make him understand a little bit more where I'm coming from, and this can help the parent or the wrestler. So that is the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast.
On the flip side, I want to make sure that we get the athlete's perspective, help the parents understand like where we're coming from, and some things might sound crazy to my dad, and he might think that it's just a me thing, or it might be just me and my brother's thing. But I think a lot of wrestlers have the same perspective on a lot of things when it comes to after a match, your parents are there saying like, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, or trying to give you advice. And it's like there's certain times and places to do things, or stuff like that. So I think giving the perspective of the athlete, and then also giving the perspective of the parent, is going to help us bridge that gap and understand like each other a lot better.
All right, so a little bit about our wrestling history. I was never an athlete. I never competed with wrestling or anything else really. So I don't really have a background as an athlete. I did always wanted my kids to do sports. We started with football, lacrosse, and wrestling. Those were our main sports. We fell in love with wrestling. My kids fell in love with wrestling, and we've learned so much. We've gone from just making it our goal to win a local tournament, to winning states, to winning New England's, to winning national titles. We continue to grow. My kids continue to grow. I continue to grow with them, learn about the sport. Our goals keep getting higher and higher. And recently we opened up our own gym. We want to continue to grow the sport. It's definitely growing and continue to grow. And I hope that we as a family really help that movement. So.
Yeah, so I started wrestling, when I was a kid. It was off and on, like, did it there and then, did football in high school and middle school, and then, picked it back up in high school, realized that, it was something that I enjoyed. That's when my brothers, my cousins all started to do wrestling as well. And, we all were like just a very competitive family, and we wanted to be the best of the best. So we just fell in love with wrestling since then, and we've been doing it every year, and it's something that my entire family looks forward to. I'm sure we'll definitely touch up on it, but we have family dinner every weekend, and the talk of our family dinner is literally just wrestling. It has to do with all different topics, and it's literally all we talk about. So it's definitely something that we're very um, lucky to have in our life.
If I could go back and I knew what I know now, I think I would tell myself that it's okay that I don't know what I know now. It's okay to learn. I think a lot of parents don't know the sport, and you learn as you go. And I think even the experienced parents learn every day. Rules change every day. The sport continues to grow and change, and it's okay. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to ask coaches. It's okay to ask other parents. Um, the wrestling community is amazing, and it's not as scary as I once thought it was.
Yeah, if I could go back, I think I would, utilize the tools that I had, at the time. I didn't think that I had certain tools, or, or I guess in a sense, like we were so new to wrestling, I didn't know about certain things that I could do, like, off-season clubs, or, certain things like that. And, with the experiences we have now, my brother is able to have his own gym, and been able to do tournaments, and off-season camps and stuff. And I think if I could go back, I would change, the effort that I put into the sport, and have put more effort into, becoming better in the off season.
I think wrestling has given us many good memories, from taking week trips, taking weekend trips, going to different places, a lot of different places that we've never been to because of wrestling. Um, I think one of my most memorable memories will have to be when um, all the Perez boys were wrestling. Um, it was just a moment that I know we'll never get back. And there's one specific picture that I look at. They weren't even at wrestling. They were actually at a one of those jump places. But it was during wrestling season. And I look at that picture and I remember that season where we were all about wrestling. We had a senior and we had a fourth grader, and kids in between that. And it was great. And I think I will cherish that forever. So I think that's one of my greatest memories during wrestling.
I think out of all the experiences that I've had with wrestling, I think it was my brother's junior year. No, it was his senior year. My brother's senior year of high school. I couldn't make his MOCs, and I was at work, and I was watching him live at work, and he ended up winning the state title. Getting the kid to his back, pinning the kid, and I just saw my family on the screen, and I was cheering and got all excited, and it was like freaking out, like my brother just won the state title, like I'm so proud of him. And everyone around me at work is looking at me like I'm crazy, like why are you so excited, like whatever. But it's like even like not being there, and like being able to like just witness it and like watch it, like it was just a crazy memory for me. And like obviously, like I've had crazier memories like when I specifically was wrestling, but I think like that feeling of like being proud, and like watching someone on the screen, and like obviously it wasn't professional wrestling or anything like that, but just seeing it like on a screen, and seeing like my brother, he just won the state title. And like I won't ever forget that memory, because everyone at work was looking at me like I was so crazy, but like it made my day, it made my week. Like I was so excited to see that like all the work that my brother put in the past couple of years, like it paid off in that moment. Um, I think that would probably be one of my best memories.
Our goal is to put out a video once a week. We will be talking about wrestling related stuff. And like I said before, it's going to be parents' perspective and wrestlers' perspective, as well as just real wrestling topics that are happening in the country. or maybe even in the world, just stuff that has to do with wrestling. So if you are into wrestling or you're a wrestling parent, you're in the right place. So make sure you subscribe, follow us, and we hope that you guys can learn something from us.
We plan on bringing in coaches, family members, parents, and other wrestlers into our podcast to talk about their stories and about experiences that they've had, or advice that they could give the Matside Nation. This is Matt Nation. Hit subscribe, join the family, and stick around. We got a lot to uncover and talk about.